I remember the exact moment his hand closed around her throat. Not because it was shocking, but because it felt familiar. People think combat prepares you for war. They're wrong. Combat prepares you for silence, the kind that fills a room when a monster walks in, and everyone decides they'd rather watch a girl die than get involved. 15 people. 15 adults. Not one of them moved. But I did. My name is Nate Cobburn, and 4 days ago I walked into a restaurant to buy a $6.99 bowl of menudo, and walked out with a war I didn't know I was about to fight. Stay with me until the very end, because what happened next didn't just expose a criminal. It exposed an entire system built on fear. And someone had to burn that system down. I wasn't anybody's hero that night. I wasn't even supposed to be in San Antonio. I was just passing through, with a busted leg, a broken past, $52 in my wallet, and a German shepherd named Shadow who ate better than I did. That was the only promise I'd ever kept to myself. Shadow eats first. He saved my life once, dragged me out of a kill zone in Helmand province when rockets turned half the world into fire. He earned his meals. I just survived long enough to buy them. Casa de Vega was small, handwritten menu, mismatched chairs, the smell of real food made by real people. The kind of place where nobody knew my rank, my scars, or the ghosts that followed me from deployment to deployment. And that's exactly why I walked in. Alina was my waitress, 23, tired eyes, real smile. She pet Shadow with the kind of gentle confidence that told me she grew up around dogs. Shadow approved. He almost never approves. Her father cooked in the back. I could hear them talking in soft, warm Spanish. Family. A sound I hadn't heard in years. For 10 minutes it felt like peace. Then the door opened. And the air changed. You don't forget that feeling once you've lived through it. Pressure drop, instinct spike, your pulse slowing instead of speeding. Threat incoming. 3 men walked in. And the biggest one, the one with the cold blue eyes, looked at everyone not like a customer, but like an owner inspecting his property. That was Dragon Zorich. I didn't know his name yet, but I recognized the type immediately. I'd fought men like him on the other side of the world. Predators. Professional ones. He spoke to Alina's father like Tomas owed him oxygen. Money. Interest. Threats delivered casually, like reading ingredients from a label. And nobody in that restaurant looked up. Everyone kept their heads down, construction workers, families, elders, eyes glued to plates, hands frozen mid-bite. Not one person said a word. Fear has gravity. It pins people to their chairs, makes them small, makes them silent. But when Zorich mentioned Alina, when he looked at her with that expression I'd seen too many times, my instincts shifted. From observing to calculating. From calculating to preparing. Alina stepped out of the kitchen with a glass of water. Her hands trembled when she saw him. And when Tomas tried to stand between them, Zorich hit him so fast the sound barely registered before the old man hit the floor. Alina screamed, and then Zorich grabbed her by the throat, lifted her off the ground. Her feet kicked. Her eyes bulged. Her fingers clawed at his wrist. Around me, 15 people sat frozen. Shadow growled under the table, low and deep, the same growl he used to make 2 seconds before something exploded overseas. I stood, slowly, deliberately, not to scare him, just so he'd see that someone finally had. Let her go, I said. He turned surprised. Men like him weren't used to being challenged, especially not by someone in a cheap flannel shirt with a limp and a service dog. But this wasn't about strength. This was about timing. I gave him 3 seconds. He used to. And when he didn't release her, I let him know exactly what kind of man I was. He didn't take me seriously at first. They never do. To men like Zorich, fear is currency. Silence is obedience. Power is whatever they can take while everyone pretends not to see. So when I told him, "You have 3 seconds to release her," he laughed, not because he thought he was safe, but because he couldn't imagine a world where someone like me would hold a line against someone like him. Then I said too. That changed everything. His men shifted, hands drifting toward jackets, eyes scanning for exits. I could practically hear their heartbeat sync, the same rhythm I'd heard from trained fighters overseas. These were not street thugs. These were operators, professionals. But so was I. Shadow stepped out from under the table, his entire body aligned, muscles tight, ears forward. Not barking, not lunging. Just focused. A warning sharper than any blade. That's when the fear hit Zorich's eyes for the first time. Not panic. Not terror. Recognition. He was finally seeing me clearly. Not a broken veteran eating cheap soup. Not a nameless drifter with a limp. But someone who'd survived things far worse than him. And someone who wasn't afraid to do it again. He let Alina go. She collapsed to the floor, coughing, gasping for air. Tomas dragged himself toward her. Every person in that restaurant finally inhaled at once like the spell had been broken. But I didn't sit down. I kept my eyes on Zorich. "You'll leave this restaurant," I told him. "You won't come back, and you'll forget this family owes you anything." He laughed again, but this time it cracked. "What will you do, soldier?" he sneered. "Call the police. I own the police." He wasn't lying. Later I'd learn about Sergeant Brewer, the corrupt officer who cleared his cases, erased complaints, pocketed payments, and ensured nobody in the neighborhood survived long enough to testify. But at that moment, all I saw was the man who'd put his hands on Alina's throat. And there are some things I don't tolerate. He stepped close. Too close. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. I nodded. "I've killed men too," I said. "The difference is, mine were trying to kill me back." The room went silent again. But this time not from fear. From truth. Real truth. The kind that slides under a man's armor and roots itself in his nerves. Something shifted in him. A calculation. A doubt. A warning. Not from me. From Shadow. My dog stepped fully into view, standing between Alina and the man who'd hurt her, teeth bared, eyes burning with a promise he was absolutely prepared to keep. "Not alone," I told Zorich. "Remember that." He backed off. Not much. But enough. Just enough that he could pretend it was a strategic retreat, and not the first moment he'd realized his grip on this neighborhood wasn't invincible. He leaned close to me. Low voice, poisoned words. "Friday," he whispered. "I come back Friday, $40,000 or I take the girl." He stepped back, eyes cold and dead like ice in winter. "And if you're still here, soldier, I'll bury you where nobody will ever find you." Then he walked out. His men followed. The room exhaled again, this time shakier, full of tremors and broken prayers. Alina was on the floor, hands at her bruised throat. Shadow pressed himself against her side, grounding her, steadying her, telling her without words. "You're still here, I've got you." Tomas knelt beside his daughter, whispering her name. A broken father, holding onto the last thing he had left in the world. I knelt with them. "You need to call the police," I said. Tomas shook his head so fast it looked like he was trying to deny reality itself. "No police," he whispered. "They work for him. They always work for him." Elena's voice cracked, raw from the bruising. "A shop owner on Flora Street tried to report him last year. His store burned down 3 days later." I looked at Shadow. He looked back. He knew that look. It was the same one I'd given him in Afghanistan when the mission went sideways, when backup was gone, when every option left was the one nobody wanted to take. This wasn't a robbery. This wasn't a debt dispute. This was a warlord, operating in America, in a family restaurant, against people who'd already lost too much. "I'm going to stop him," I said. Tomas looked at me like I was speaking another language. "You can't stop him," he whispered. "He owns everything. The cops, the judges, the neighborhood, he owns all of us." "He doesn't own me," I said. "And he doesn't own you." Elena stared at me through the tears and the bruises. "You don't know us," she said softly. "You don't owe us anything." "I can't walk away from this," I told her. "It's not something I know how to do." I walked out of the restaurant with $52 in my wallet, a dog who trusted me more than I trusted myself, and no plan at all. But I didn't need a plan. I needed resolve. And that I had in abundance. Friday was 4 days away. 4 days until Zorich returned. 4 days to prepare. 4 days to make sure that when the monster came back, he wouldn't walk out again. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. Shadow lay on the motel floor, head pressed against my boot, breathing slowly, evenly, the way he did the night before we walked into a compound in Helmand where none of us were supposed to survive. Same energy, same anticipation, same quiet agreement between us. Whatever comes, we face it together. At 2 a.m. I called Jenny, my sister, the only family I had left. She knew the moment she heard my voice. "You found trouble again," she said quietly. "I didn't find it," I told her. "It found me." When I told her about Elena, how Zorich lifted her off the floor by the throat, how everyone froze, how the whole neighborhood lived under his thumb, Jenny didn't breathe for a full 3 seconds. Then she whispered, "Don't die, Nate." I promised I wouldn't. But promises don't stop bullets. Tomas opened the door. His face was bruised, swollen, older than it should have looked. "You came back," he said. "I said I would." He stared at me the way soldiers sometimes look at each other after surviving something that should have killed them both. Then he stepped aside and let me in. Elena came downstairs hours later, wearing a scarf to hide the fresh bruises on her throat. When she took it off, Shadow stood and walked to her without hesitation, pressing his warm weight against her legs. For the first time since Helmand, I let myself feel something. I sat with Tomas at the kitchen table while he emptied a coffee can full of 3 years of payments, napkins with dates, scraps of paper with amounts, receipts stained with grease, and a handwritten loan contract designed to crush him. I called Marcus, an old Ranger buddy. Then I called Agent Marsh at the DOJ. By Thursday morning, we had 7 witnesses. 7. In a neighborhood where nobody talked. They talked now because they saw Elena's bruises. Because someone finally asked them to. Marsh arrived, listened to every family, and told me the part I didn't know. Zorich wasn't just a loan shark. He was running a trafficking pipeline. Girls locked in his bar. Forced labor. Debt bondage. 12 victims currently unaccounted for. Carmen's daughter, Anna, 19 years old, was inside that bar. That changed everything. It didn't make me hesitate. It made me furious. Not Friday. Not 6 a.m. He showed up at midnight. He rattled the locked door while Alina and I sat in the dark, the smell of coffee and cleaning supplies still filling the air. His voice slithered through the wood. "I know you're in there, soldier." He told me he was coming early. Friday morning, 6 a.m. To take Alina. To finish what we started. Then he left. I called Marsh 9 times. Straight to voicemail. No plan. No backup. No certainty. Only Shadow beside me. And the decision to stand. Her voice was tight. "I'm moving my team, but full support won't be in position until 7:00, she said. Zorich was arriving at 6:00. "Give me 15 minutes, she told me. "Keep him talking, keep him inside the restaurant, don't let him leave." 15 minutes. I'd held longer. Shadow heard him first, ears forward, body stiff, growl low and slow like a warning siren deep underground. The door opened, and he walked in with 5 armed men, not 3. 2 were trained. I knew it instantly from the way they stood, balanced on the balls of their feet, hands loose, eyes scanning angles. Serbian army. Just like Marsh warned. Zorich wasn't calm today. He'd lost his edge. Fear makes predators sloppy. He looked at me. Then at Alina. Then at Tomas. "You think you embarrass me," he said. "You think you scared me." He stepped forward. $40,000 now, or she comes with me. Tomas stepped between them and said one word that cracked the universe. "No." The old man's hands were trembling. But he didn't back down. I moved too. Shadow surged ahead of me, placing himself between Alina and the enforcers. Zorich signaled his men. 2 stepped forward. Shadow barked once, the kind of bark that ends fights before they begin, and the men froze. Everything slowed. The kind of slow motion your body remembers from combat. I watched one enforcer's hand drift toward his waistband. A weapon. I calculated distance. 7 feet. 2 seconds. 1 chance. "Tell your man to move his hand," I said, "or I break his wrist before he clears the gun." Zorich looked at me. And that's when I said it. "You made the biggest mistake of your life." He smirked. "Oh, and what mistake is that?" "You came back." A shout from outside. "Federal agents, don't move." The front door blew open. The back door burst in. Federal teams flooded the room from both directions, badges up, weapons drawn, formation tight. 12 agents. Tactical. Precise. Everything I'd held together for 4 days came down to this. Zorich's men dropped immediately. But Zorich didn't. He didn't run. He didn't surrender. He lunged. Not at me. At Alina. 3 feet. That's all that separated him from her. But Shadow got there first. 85 pounds of trained fury slammed into him like a wrecking ball, taking him off his feet, knocking him flat on his back. The dog stood over him, teeth bared, breath hot on his neck, ready to rip his throat out if I gave the word. I didn't. "Shadow," I said. "Hold." He froze perfectly. Not moving. Not biting. Just owning the moment. The agents cuffed Zorich on the floor, reading him his rights as his entire empire fell apart. Out the window I saw Brewer, the corrupt cop, being shoved into a federal car in handcuffs. 12 women were rescued from the bar that same morning, including Anna. Carmen collapsed when she saw her daughter. Collapsed in relief, not grief. For the first time in years. Alina testified. Tomas testified. I testified. The defense tried to paint me as a broken veteran, with nothing to lose. They asked why I got involved. I gave them the real answer. Because his hand was on her throat. That's it. That's the only explanation that matters. The courtroom went silent. The jury found him guilty on every charge. Racketeering, extortion, assault, trafficking, conspiracy, witness intimidation. 22 years. No parole. Brewer got 8. Zorich's enforcers got 3 to 9. And the neighborhood finally breathed again. Full tables. Smiling families. No fear. Elena brought me coffee without asking. Tomas served me carne asada on the house. Shadow slept under the table like he owned the place. For the first time in a long time, I felt something like peace. Elena told me to stop eating cheap menudo. Said I deserved better. Maybe she was right. Jenny told me I couldn't save the world. Said I could only save the part right in front of me. Maybe she was right too. So I took a job with the FBI. Consulting. Helping break trafficking networks across Texas. And the morning I left for Houston, Elena handed me a paper bag with food. And a note I didn't read until I was on the highway. It said, "My mother used to say God sends angels in strange disguises. Some wear uniforms. Some wear scars. Some drink terrible coffee. And some travel with German shepherds who know exactly who needs protection. Come back soon. We miss you already." Shadow rested his head on my leg as I drove. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't running from something, but towards something. Purpose, justice, peace, maybe even forgiveness. There are monsters out there. I know that. I've seen them. But men like me, men who don't look away, we still exist too. And as long as we do, the world still has a fighting chance.